Hello there, and welcome to our journey today. You've tuned into Stoic Warrior, your go-to podcast for practical philosophy and inner strength. In this episode, we'll explore 6 hard truths you can't ignore about life. Now, you might be thinking, why focus on hard truths? Isn't life already challenging enough? That's a great question. The answer lies in the Stoic perspective, which views obstacles not as crippling walls, but as stepping stones to inner calm and resilience. Today, we'll confront some realities that many of us try to avoid, yet, when embraced, they become the foundation of a more robust and peaceful life. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's embark on this adventure together. I invite you to reflect as we go. Take notes if you like, pause and ponder, and know that each of these truths carries within it a seed of transformation. Let's begin. 1. Nothing lasts forever, including you. Have you ever paused mid-conversation, looked into a friend's eyes, and suddenly felt the weight of time pressing in? That sudden awareness that every breath, every laugh, every tear is fleeting can feel like a jolt to the system. Yet, it's precisely this jolt that the Stoics invite us to feel again and again. Marcus Aurelius urges us in his Meditations, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This isn't a morbid musing. It's a call to awaken, to live so fully that we greet each moment with wide-eyed presence. Think about early spring, when cherry trees burst into bloom. Those blossoms, pale pink clouds drifting in the breeze, are enchanting, but they last only days. Then, one morning, you step outside and the petals are on the ground, creating a soft carpet that's beautiful in its way, yet bittersweet. Seneca would remind us, nature's cycles teach us that loss and renewal are inseparable. Just as the petal falls, so must we let go of what was, making room for what will be. Imagine your favorite song playing one last time. The final chord rings out, and for a heartbeat, you hold its echo in your mind, just a whisper now before silence returns. In that silence lies possibility. Epictetus, once a slave who endured chains and hardship, found freedom in this very insight. External things can end, but our inner life, our judgments, our virtues remains ours to shape. When we embrace impermanence, we reclaim what truly matters. Ask yourself, when did you last treat a moment as if it might be your last? Perhaps you lingered over coffee and savored the steam, the warmth in your hands. Or maybe you lingered in an embrace, memorizing the sound of a loved one's voice. These choices, small and often unconscious, define our lives far more deeply than grand gestures. By attending fully to what is here now, we honor the fleeting gift of existence. And yet, many of us drift through days like sleepwalkers, clinging to routines and ignoring the ticking clock. We postpone joy, defer gratitude until someday. But someday rarely arrives. Seneca warns, life is long if you know how to use it. Using it means recognizing every beat of your heart as sacred, every sunrise as unrepeatable. It means turning off autopilot and stepping into the cockpit of your awareness. Here's an everyday anecdote. A friend of mine lost her father unexpectedly, amid grief. She discovered a leather-bound journal, one he'd kept hidden, filled with reflections on family dinners, childhood games, and quiet morning walks. He'd written not knowing when he would pass, yet knew it could be soon. Reading his words, my friend felt both sorrow for the loss and profound gratitude for his intention to capture love in ink. His journal became a testament. Though life ends, the beauty we notice and the love we share can echo beyond our last breath. So, what can you do today to honor impermanence? Pause before you send that text. Look up from your screen and notice the color of the sky. Offer genuine thanks when someone does something kind. If you find yourself clinging to a job title, a relationship, or an image of yourself, ask, what if this changed tomorrow? What if I lost it all? Let that question sharpen your vision. It's not meant to scare you, but to wake you up. In embracing nothing lasts forever, you cultivate 2 gifts, clarity and courage. Clarity to see what truly matters, love, purpose, integrity, and courage to act on it, even when the world feels uncertain. As the Stoics teach, we cannot halt the march of time, but we can decide how we walk its path. So walk with eyes open, heart steady, and mind attuned to the present's fragile splendor. In doing so, You transform the hardest truth impermanence into your greatest ally. 2. You control only your mind. Have you ever noticed how a single email can send your mood spiraling? Or how a traffic jam can turn a calm morning into a simmering pot of frustration? It's as though the world holds a remote control to your inner state, and all you have to do is press pause or play. Yet, the Stoics insist that no one else has this remote. It lives within you. Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. In other words, nothing outside of you has true power over your peace, only your judgments do. Imagine you're rushing to an important meeting. Your phone buzzes with a curt message from your boss. "We need to talk." Your heart pounds. Anger and anxiety flash through you. In that moment, you have a choice. Allow your mind to be hijacked by fear, or recognize that the message itself is neither good nor bad, only your interpretation makes it so. Epictetus would encourage you to step back and ask, is this within my control? The answer is no. What is within your control, however, is how you respond. You can cradle the fear and let it fester, or you can label it, "This is anxiety, breathe," and remind yourself that you decide your next thought. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, practiced this every day. He wrote in his Meditations about the inner citadel, a fortress of reason around the heart that no external assault could breach. Picture a castle surrounded by high walls. Outside, storms may rage, armies may gather, but within, the flame of your judgment burns steadily. When you catch yourself spiraling, whether over a canceled flight, a curt critique, or a global headline, picture that inner citadel. Ask, can I control this? If not, why give it power over me? Let's talk about a real-life moment. A friend of mine once applied for a dream job. She spent weeks preparing, only to receive a form letter rejection. Initially, she was devastated. Her mind replayed every perceived mistake, every stammer in the interview. Then, recalling Seneca's advice that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, she decided to intervene. She wrote down each upsetting thought and examined it. Was it fact or a fear-driven story? She realized most were stories, fictions she'd let run wild. By challenging these distortions, she reclaimed her calm and resolved to improve her skills. The rejection still stung, but it no longer dominated her inner world. This isn't to say emotions vanish. We are human, after all. But Stoicism teaches that emotions become destructive only when we fuse them with judgments, when we say, "This should not have happened," or "I can't bear this." Instead, try saying, "This is unpleasant," and pair it with, "I have the strength to endure." Epictetus urged students to rehearse adversity, to imagine losing what they loved so they would not be overwhelmed if it occurred. This mental training, negative visualization, sharpens your capacity to remain unshaken when life's surprises arrive. Here's a simple practice you can try right now. When irritation or anxiety rises, pause for a breath and silently ask, what part of this is within my control? You'll often discover that while you can't stop the rain or prevent someone else's error, you can choose patience, you can choose perspective, you can choose to take a different action. With each pause, you reinforce your ownership of your mind. So next time you find yourself fuming in traffic or dwelling on criticism, imagine that inner citadel. Remind yourself that your real task is not to change the world, but to change your view of it. As Marcus Aurelius said, we are actors in a play, and sometimes we are written to face storms. Our power lies in how we perform our role gracefully, consciously, and with the understanding that the world outside is not our master, but our stage. And on that stage, you alone direct your mind. 3. Suffering is part of the package. Have you ever wondered why pain feels so unwelcome, like an intruder barging into your life unannounced? We cringe at the thought of discomfort, physical strain, emotional wounds, moments of loneliness, yet suffering is as much a part of human existence as breathing. The Stoics didn't preach avoidance. They taught acceptance. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." In other words, what tries us turns us into something stronger. Picture the first time you tried to learn a new skill, say, playing guitar. Your fingertips blister, chords sound like clumsy clanks. Most people quit here. Yet those who persist discover a curious truth. Each ache in your fingers is a message of growth. The same principle applies to life's bigger trials. When we face illness, grief, or betrayal, our souls bruise. But with mindful reflection, each bruise becomes a lesson in endurance, compassion, or gratitude. Let's dive a little deeper. Marcus Aurelius, amid battles and betrayals, reminded himself that pain is neither good nor bad in itself. It's our judgment that turns it into suffering. He asked, "How long will you wait before you demand the best for yourself?" Instead of letting things happen to you, by reframing hardship as training, we shift from victimhood to agency. When a cold wind bites your skin, you can curse the chill or feel alive with awareness. The winter storm is still harsh, but your inner dialogue transforms the experience. Consider Epictetus, who lost his freedom and found it again within his mind. Shackled as a slave, he endured indignities most of us can scarcely imagine. Yet he wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." How? By recognizing that external suffering chains hunger. Mockery could only harm him if he allowed it. He practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining the worst: betrayal by a friend, the collapse of his health, the death of a loved one. By doing so, he conditioned his mind to expect adversity. So when real sorrow arrived, he met it with a steady heart instead of shock. Here's an everyday example. Imagine you wake up to an unexpected email informing you that a major project has failed. Your chest tightens, old insecurities surge. You might think, "This ruins me." But what if you paused and asked, "What can this teach me?" A question Seneca encouraged. Suddenly, failure is no longer a dead end, but a crossroads. You learn resilience by examining where things went awry and how to adapt. In that moment of pause, suffering loses its power to cripple and becomes a tutor whispering strategies for next time. Suffering also bridges us to others. When you've known loss, whether a friendship that faded or a parent who passed, the ache reminds you that you're human, connected to every soul who has loved and lamented. Marcus Aurelius pointed out that we share the same origin. All things are woven together, and the common bond is sacred. When we accept our suffering, we open our hearts to the pain of neighbors, colleagues, even strangers in the headlines. Compassion grows from shared hardship. So, how do you practice this Stoic approach today? Start with small discomforts. Take a cold shower and notice the electric shock of water against your skin. When your muscles flare in protest, tell yourself, "This is strengthening me." Or set boundaries around your time. Say no to one request that doesn't align with your values and feel the tension that comes from disappointing someone. In that tension, reflect, is this discomfort worse than the regret of not honoring my priorities? The next time life serves you bitterness, illness, rejection, or heartbreak, pause, breathe, and silently say, "This too is a gift." Not because the pain itself is desirable, but because the lesson it brings is invaluable. Remember Seneca's words, "Fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men." By embracing suffering as part of the package, you transform every trial into an opportunity to fortify your character, deepen your empathy, and awaken to the full spectrum of life's beauty even in its hardest moments. For your values define you, not your circumstances. Have you ever watched someone's life change in an instant? Wealth evaporates, titles vanish, relationships fracture, and wondered, who are they now? It's a haunting question, because so often we tether our self-worth to what surrounds us, our jobs, our status, our bank accounts. The Stoics, however, point us back to a deeper yardstick, our values. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. In other words, stop chasing labels and start embodying the virtues you admire. Think for a moment about two people who face the same setback. Let's say, losing a promotion. One person spirals into self-doubt, convinced their career is over, their worth diminished. The other takes a breath and asks, "What does integrity ask of me now?" The first identifies with circumstance, "I am defined by my job." The second anchors in values, "I am defined by how I act." Which person do you imagine feeling more grounded? Which one do you see standing tall in a storm? Seneca offers a powerful anecdote. Once, a wealthy Roman lamented his misfortunes after a shipwreck drained him of his possessions. Seneca replied, "That which is superfluous becomes a burden. When wealth disappears, it vanishes. What remains are the virtues you've practiced: kindness, patience, wisdom. These cannot be carried away by wind or wave. Your true currency is not minted in gold, but forged in character." Let's explore a familiar scenario. You find a wallet on the street. Inside, there's a stack of cash and an ID. Here's the question: do you pocket the money, or do you track down its owner? This moment, fleeting as it is, reveals your core. If honesty is your guiding star, you return the wallet. If convenience or fear of conflict wins, you keep the cash. Your decision in that split second tells you far more about yourself than any resume ever could. Epictetus, born into slavery and later freed, taught that circumstances can humiliate or humble us, but they never define our worth. Imagine two people waiting out a flight delay. One snarls at every gate agent, convinced the world is to blame. The other calmly strikes up a conversation with a fellow passenger, offers a joke to the weary staff, and treats the unexpected layover as an adventure. Both face the same delay, but only one is enslaved by circumstance. The other is free to choose kindness, curiosity, and good humor. How do we cultivate this freedom in our daily lives? Start by clarifying your values. Ask yourself, what qualities do I want people to remember about me? Courage, compassion, integrity. Then lean into situations that test these values. If patience is your goal, take a deep breath the next time someone cuts you off in traffic. If generosity is your aim, volunteer your time or share a meal with someone in need. With each practice, you're building a reservoir of identity that no external tide can wash away. There will be times when life's winds howl: job losses, health scares, broken hearts. These moments feel like they strip us bare. Yet, in those very moments, your values become anchors. They whisper, "You are not this loss. You are the love you've shared, the courage you've shown, the promises you've kept." Recall Marcus Aurelius's image of the good person as a cohesive piece of art, marble carved by both triumphs and tragedies. Chips may appear, but the essence remains. So I invite you now to pause and reflect. When the world around you shifts, what remains unshaken? What principles guide your actions when convenience and comfort tempt you to look away? By tethering your identity to values rather than conditions, you transform life's unpredictability into a stage for virtue. No matter how tempestuous the weather, you stand as your lighthouse, steady, luminous, and unwavering. And as you navigate the ebb and flow of your journey, remember this: your true legacy won't be measured in titles or treasures, but in the integrity of your choices, in the quiet moments, choosing honesty over gains, kindness over indifference, courage over fear. You craft a life that outlasts every circumstance. That, my friend, is the Stoic secret to defining yourself from within. 5. You are never alone in facing life's harshness. Have you ever felt as though you were the only one battling the storm? Like every setback, every ache, and every moment of doubt was yours to bear alone. It's a common illusion, yet one the Stoics were determined to dispel. From the slave-turned-teacher Epictetus to the emperor-philosopher Marcus Aurelius, they insisted that our struggles are woven into the wider tapestry of human experience. "We are born to help each other," wrote Marcus, reminding us that no heart truly beats in isolation. Think for a moment about Epictetus himself. Shackled by chains and treated as less than human, he nevertheless discovered an inner freedom that no physical confinement could shatter. How? By recognizing that his suffering was shared in essence by countless other soldiers wounded in battle, citizens grieving lost loved ones, and children afraid of the dark. In his teachings, Epictetus didn't just offer personal solace. He built a community of seekers who met to question, to encourage, and to remind one another that hardship is not a solitary sentence, but a rite of passage we all endure. Ask yourself, when you faced a deep loss, maybe a friendship that drifted away, or a dream that unraveled, did you reach out, or did you retreat into yourself? Seneca observed that a happy life is by its nature, and part of our nature is social connection. Loneliness magnifies pain, companionship diffuses it. Even a brief exchange, a shared laugh with a neighbor, or a phone call to an old friend can remind us that we're not solitary sailors battling rogue waves. but fellow passengers on a ship bound for common shores. Here's a simple anecdote from everyday life. A co-worker of mine went through a rough patch divorce. Financial strain, the works. At first, he shouldered it silently, convinced he would be judged weak if he cried out for help. Then, a small turning point, he joined a weekend hiking group. On a trail marked by steep rises and rocky descents, he found more than fresh air, he found stories. One hiker had lost his home in a fire and rebuilt it with his own hands. Another had fought addiction and stayed sober one day at a time. In those shared confessions, my co-worker realized that each person's struggle, though unique in detail, resonated with a universal chord. The trail, hard as it was, became a classroom in solidarity. Marcus Aurelius urged us to see all people as parts of a single organism, like limbs on a body. When one limb suffers, the whole organism feels it. This is not hyperbole, it's a call to empathy. When your friend says, "I'm drowning," you don't respond with "toughen up." You offer a life preserver. The ancient Stoics gathered in circles to do just that, share reflections, challenge destructive thoughts, and hold each other accountable to higher ideals. Today, your circle might be a book club, a meditation group, or even an online forum where strangers become companions in resilience. So, how can you tap into this communal strength right now? Start small. Share one honest thought with someone you trust. Ask, "Have you ever felt this way?" Listen deeply when they respond. Notice how simply voicing your struggle lightens its weight. Or volunteer, teach a skill, mentor a younger colleague, or help at a local shelter. When you give your time, you reinforce the truth that we are all in this together. And here's a final reflection question. Who might be waiting to hear your story, just as you once needed to hear theirs? In revealing your vulnerability, you grant permission for others to do the same, and that shared courage becomes a beacon. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Let your hardships lead you to connection. Let your wounds become the very bridges that unite you with your fellow travelers. Remember, you are never truly alone. Your struggles link you to a lineage of thinkers, poets, workers, and dreamers who walked similar paths. Each time you face life's harshness, be it a sleepless night, a broken promise, or an unexpected loss, reach outward as well as inward. In that reach, you'll find that every hand you hold, every story you share, is another thread weaving you into the strong, unbreakable fabric of humanity. 6. Growth often feels uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed how stepping out of your comfort zone feels like plunging into icy water? That initial gasp, the shiver running up your spine, it's uncomfortable, even alarming. Yet, beyond the shock, lies exhilaration, clarity, and growth. The Stoics recognized this paradox centuries ago. Progress demands discomfort. As Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Growth often feels unnatural at first, but it is the very force that refines our character. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. At first, you wobble, your muscles tense, and every pedal stroke feels precarious. You may fall hard, your palms scrape against pavement, and frustration rises. Most people give up after the first tumble, but those who persist discover something remarkable. Each jolt teaches balance. Their legs strengthen, their reflexes sharpen, and what once felt impossible becomes second nature. This simple childhood lesson mirrors the Stoic path. Discomfort is the forge of resilience. Marcus Aurelius, commander of armies and guardian of an empire, faced hardships that would daunt most of us, a plague that ravaged Rome, political betrayals, and the constant weight of imperial responsibility. Yet he described these challenges as gifts. "My trials strengthen me," he wrote, "not to harden my heart, but to steel it with purpose." When growth feels like strain, remember that the Stoics saw each obstacle as a teacher whispering its lesson. Embrace tension, for it builds strength. Consider Epictetus, who was born a slave, physically broken by his master's harsh treatment, but rather than resigning himself to bitterness, he seized agency over his interior life. He turned adversity into opportunity. His lectures brim with practical exercise is negative visualization, voluntary discomfort, daily reflection, all designed to train the mind like an athlete trains the body. He urged students to imagine hardship in advance so that when real trials arrived, they would not be blindsided. This mental rehearsal made actual suffering more bearable because it had been anticipated and contextualized. Here's a modern anecdote. A colleague decided to improve her public speaking skills. She feared stuttering, blanking out, and even ridicule. So, she joined a local Toastmasters group. At her first meeting, her voice trembled, her palms sweated, and a few jokes fell flat. Yet each subsequent week, she leaned into that discomfort, volunteering for impromptu speeches, experimenting with new topics, and welcoming constructive feedback. Weeks turned into months, and gradually, the stage felt less daunting. What was once a source of anxiety became a platform for her passion. Her transformation wasn't magic. It was the result of embracing the very unease she once dreaded. Why does growth require this discomfort? Because life's most essential lessons don't come wrapped in ribbons. They come as challenges that push us to our edges. When you practice a skill beyond your current capacity, whether it's a tough conversation, a new sport, or a leadership role, you invite your mind and heart to expand. You discover reserves of patience, resolve, and creativity you never knew you had. So, how can you consciously invite healthy discomfort? Start with small experiments. If patience is your goal, try waiting in line without checking your phone. If you want to cultivate courage, speak up in a meeting when you'd usually remain silent. If you seek adaptability, change your routine, take a new route to work. Cook a cuisine you've never tried. Void the autopilot. Notice the initial resistance, the tightening of your chest, the doubts whispering this is silly. Then, lean in. Breathe steadily. Acknowledge the discomfort as a sign of growth at work. And here's a final reflection. What's one area where you've stayed comfortable for too long? Maybe you've postponed a difficult conversation, delayed a creative project, or avoided physical exertion. What if, right now, you took one small step toward that fear? Could you write the first draft of an article, send that email you've been avoiding, or join a weekend hiking group? Each small act of courage stretches your mind's capacity for facing life's larger challenges. Remember, the Stoics taught that our potential lies beyond our comfort zones. Growth often feels uncomfortable, but that discomfort is the signal that something profound is happening beneath the surface. Like the sculptor chiseling marble, each strike may jar you, but it reveals the masterpiece within. Embrace the unease, for it is the touchstone of transformation, and through it, you become not just stronger, but more alive. And so, dear listeners, our journey through these 5 hard truths comes to a close, but your Stoic practice is only just beginning. We've seen how nothing lasts forever, how your power lies in your mind, how suffering can be your greatest teacher, how values never circumstances define you, how you're never alone in hardship, and how growth demands discomfort. Each truth is a torch to light your path through life's shadows, guiding you toward clarity, courage, and compassion. I want to thank you from the depths of my heart for walking this path with me today. Your attention, your willingness to confront these realities, and your openness to change are the seeds of your transformation. Remember Marcus Aurelius's words, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Let these insights not remain ideas, but become daily practice. If this episode stirred something in you, whether a new question, an aha moment, or even a gentle nudge to pause and breathe, please let me know. Hit that like button to let the algorithm know we're building a community of thoughtful, resilient souls. Share this with a friend who could use a dose of Stoic strength. And if you haven't already, click subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of practical philosophy. Finally, I'd love to hear from you. Which of today's truths resonated most? How will you apply it in the coming days? Leave a comment below or reach out on social media. Let's continue this conversation together. Thank you for being here, and until next time, stand firm in your values, embrace life's lessons, and keep that inner citadel strong. Farewell, and may your journey be guided by wisdom and resilience.